Hey there, it's Jeanette, and I have another video to share with you. This one features a image from Stamping Bella. This is called Lily of the Valley, and I turned it into a birthday card. And for my embellishments, I made my own felt roses. So I'm going to share with you the coloration as well as how I created these roses. It's actually really easy, and once you know how, you can create lots and lots of them. So to get started, I am going to share the coloration. So I stamped the image with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. This works very well with Copic markers. And I'm using my Misty here to stamp the image. And I did go ahead and stamp it twice to get a nice dark impression. And that's why I like using the Misty. For the skin colors, I'm sticking with the color palette that I've been using lately, and again starting with my lighter shades and blending in my darker shades till I get a really nice sort of coloration that has some shadows and some highlights, and that gives some definition to the image. It's been a long time since I've colored up one of these Stamping Bella images. When I first started paper crafting, I had a whole bunch of them, but these ones are quite sweet. They're from a line, I think it's called TOWNIE, or anyways, I'll leave the link below this video for you. They're quite sweet and innocent looking, and there's a whole series of images with flowers. So you can see that even though there's not a whole lot of skin, I'm really taking my time and blending everything, but making sure not to cover the entire image, because I want to leave those white areas that you see are going to end up being my highlight at the end. So I want to make sure that I still leave enough room to have a nice highlight, because if you color everything dark, then you sort of lose that impression of having dimension. So now that everything is blended, I am blending in that lightest color now over the white areas, and then all the skin will be finished. Adding a little bit of cheek color here, and then I'll just blend it a little bit so it's not too harsh, and then go over it again with the skin colors. So I'm going to be doing the leaves here with some green shades. It's pretty easy to color these areas. They have some nice definition, and it works very quickly. I'll go ahead and color in the stem here. I'm not going to shade it at all because it's such a small area. I decided that was probably a leaf. I wasn't quite sure, but it did look different from the other ones that were hanging on the stem, so I decided to make that into a leaf. Just using those same colors I used before. And then for the flowers here, I'm just using G40. I'm just using one color. It's a very light green, and just coloring in where I want my shadows to be, leaving the rest of the image white. I decided that that was going to be a flower too, just because I didn't want another green leaf there. So, I mean, it's up to you when you color this image how you want to interpret it. And I just left it. That was it for coloring the flowers. I'm going to move on to her dress, and I'm using a series of RVs, which are like red violets. So some pretty intense pink here, but as I lay down the deeper shades, it will sort of mute down a little bit. It won't be so bright. Again, I'm being really careful to leave some white areas that will serve as my highlight areas, and just adding a little bit of marker to where I want the shadows to be. So a light hand is always really good when you're using smaller images. And a tip that I do give to some of my students that are having trouble laying down just a little bit of color is I tell them to hold the marker a little higher up. Here you can see I'm holding my marker pretty far down near the nib, but if you hold it higher, you will put less pressure on the pen, and therefore less ink will go down onto your paper. So that's a little trick. If you think that you're a little heavy-handed, just hold your marker a little higher up. I decided to do her little pantaloons here in green, just to sort of bring out that green that was in the flowers. I missed that area of pink, so I'm just adding the colors there. I'm going to work down there on the shoes. I'm sorry it's out of frame. And then I am going to go onto the hair. This is E41, just adding a light shade of that. Then I did take a darker green marker and add a little bit more of depth to the flowers because I felt they weren't popping enough. Then I'll continue on the hair using some darker markers in the same family of colors. And I'm just drawing some little strands starting from the top and working inwards towards the center, leaving the middle sort of uncolored, just has that base color that I put down at the beginning, and that serves as a highlight for her hair. Working in a little bit of a darker shade here just to add a little bit more depth again. And then I will just sort of fill in with the E41. I'm darkening up the eyes with the black gel glaze marker and adding a few white dots to her little dress. I'm going to be creating a die frame to go over top, so I'm just trimming my image. I centered the die over it to make sure I knew how I wanted to trim it off. Now I'm just going to take a piece of a cardstock that I have. It sort of has like a woven texture to it, and I die cut the frame out for it. And now to create the flowers, I have some older dies from my favorite things. I don't know if they're still available. I will try to look for links for you. If not, I will definitely find something similar. So I have some felt and I'm just die cutting the shapes out, and you can see how nicely that cuts out. And I did decide to do a few more leaves and to die cut the flowers once again. So now you can see I have all the components there. So what I like to do, I've done 2 of the flowers. I like to take something like a paintbrush, or here I'm using this little craft tool, and I just sort of wrap the felt around and around in a circle, tight against the needle part. And then I'm just adding glue to the base and gluing it down. You can see I have it glued down on a piece of paper that's been laminated so that it can dry nicely. So here you can see I'm doing it again. I'm just wrapping around and around this sort of fine tip of the craft tool, adding a little bit of glue, and then tucking the little flap over, and I let it dry like that. And for the insides of the flowers, I'm just going to add a few adhesive pearls. Added some larger ones to the bigger flowers, and then for the smaller flowers I decided to add 3 little tiny pearls. So I thought that was kind of neat. Now I'm just going to position the frame over the image and figure out where exactly I want to stamp that happy birthday. Then I'll just swing the arm down, and I'm going to be stamping it with the intense black ink. And by using the Misty, I was able to position that sentiment exactly where I wanted it to be. So now I'm going to be putting the card together. Added some adhesive to the frame. I'll center it right over, and then I will pop that onto the card. So I fussed a little bit with exactly how I wanted to add the flowers, or where I wanted to add them. So once I was happy with where they were, I positioned some here on the lower left and then some on the upper right, Once I was happy with that and everything sort of looked like it was balanced, I then took my glue and I just made sure everything was secured down really well with that glue. I've been using this glue for a few weeks now. I really like it. It's the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive Glue, and it dries clear, and so far it has not clogged. So my card is now done. I really hope you've enjoyed seeing me create this card, and I hope it inspires you to try some of these new stamps from Stamping Bella. Thanks a lot for watching.